All right, guys. I couldn't wait to talk about this, especially since I've been watching on YouTube. If you guys want to Google it, YouTube it actually. Something called GOAT Season. It's a series by this guy Maximilian, I think 17. I'll double check it right now. But this guy puts together highlights of every great season of a specific player. Let me switch real quick.
I love this. I love that YouTube channel.
Yeah. Wow. It's Maximilian 711. So if you guys have like a browser up, you can go check him out real quick, just so you can see what I'm talking about. But lately, and he just did Larry Bird's GOAT season of 85-89, 85-86. He previously did one for Pippen for 93-94. So it's highlights from almost every game.
There's an AI one, Jay.
There's an AI
one.
Oh, man.
And
2001 for AI, because that was
Free Iverson. Let's go. I haven't seen a long time.
So the 90s brought us some great players, that some of them which lasted well into the new millennium, some of which also fizzled out before the new millennium.
And they probably should have retired, and they didn't.
Should have retired, but they didn't.
Oh, champ.
Will, we'll start with you. Who, out of all the players in the 90s, excluding Jordan, I think this is going to be the question for everybody. Who was your guy? And we'll limit it to maybe one or two people that you had at the top of your list, let's say after Jordan.
Cool. Yeah, because I have one not so superstar, or not really superstar at all.
Also, no Knicks, because that's an easy thing for us. So no Knicks, because we all would say for the 90s it's Patrick Ewing, John Starks, Anthony Mason.
Dang it.
All of them. We know this already. This is a given for any of the fans of the show. So so non-Knicks.
No problem.
That makes it a little bit tougher. All right, cool. So when I think of 90s, I think of early 90s to mid 90s. Mm-hmm. So for me, I was a big Kevin Johnson guy.
Oh,
okay. Yeah. So the first game I ever watched was the Knicks versus Suns. So I saw Barkley and KJ, Danny Ainge, and all them playing against.
KJ was good.
Yeah, that was a good team too. They gave Jordan a run for the money.
Yeah,
for the most part. Well, not really, but they got to the finals. So KJ was definitely one of them. The second one, definitely not anyone from the Rockets.
Oh my goodness.
Definitely not. And of course, Penny Hardaway is my other one.
Penny.
I can watch Penny to this day and watch him play. Back when he was first joining the Magic, still can watch him.
Yeah,
Awesome.
The GOAT season series has Penny's quote-unquote MVP season as 94-95, the year they went to the final. That highlight reel is absolutely
he's bonkers.
Sick.
Yeah, that dude was so good.
So well-rounded.
Very good. Blue chips.
Yeah, you get
arguably the dopest sneaker line ever.
Outside of the Jordan line. Penny. So let's get on Penny real quick, and this is for all four of you. There was a time where we thought that Penny was going to be remembered legacy-wise as the next Magic Johnson, which is funny because
there was a time.
But it's funny because I think, in my opinion, that's where LeBron is at the moment, as Magic kind of like 3.0.
I can see that. I can see him, more as a Magic player than like a Jordan player. And that it's funny because that's all we really have to compare to as far as greats go. So people are like, why can't he be LeBron? He will be someday, but for us, it's what we have. It's what we have to compare to. So yeah, I could see that absolutely. Magic Johnson.
Yeah,
Magic Johnson is.
So I think for my two players, I think Penny Hardaway was one of them. Was a big kind of influence on my game, actually, also in the 90s. But the other guy, who was supposed to be the next, I know you guys probably know who I'm talking about, is Grant Hill.
Grant Hill.
Yep, Mr. Fila himself.
They have Grant Hill's GOAT season as 97-98, and that highlight reel is absolutely more bonkers than the Anthony Hardaway highlight reel. And it made me realize just the way his skill set was basically, for me, Grant Hill was LeBron before LeBron.
He was supposed to be next MJ. I wouldn't say he was gonna be next MJ.
Yeah, but the thing was, Grant
Different
Hill
game, though.
Wasn't he like
game.
taller and lankier?
Way different.
Yeah,
He's taller and lankier than LeBron, right?
Yeah, he's 6'8", 6. Well, there's about the same height,
Yeah.
6'8", 6'9", but he was more of a finesse dude. Like he was less power than LeBron, but he could throw it down on people. He threw it down. He's throwing it down on Mutombo. He's just fearless when he gets into the lane. That's why it was a comparison in my head that, you know, the passing and the court vision was different from Jordan's, and there was more of a willingness to facilitate. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
it came off of, I just had watched the GOAT season of Scottie Pippen, and then if you want to put those two together, those arguably are the two people that were LeBron before LeBron. LeBron kind of just took it to another level with the scoring and just the overall like the
Dominance.
Yeah.
It's
exactly.
It's an absolute. Those, if you watch those highlight reels back to back with Pippen and Grant Hill, it's like the same. It's almost the same player.
Which is odd because they're technically like he's only a few years after Pippen in his prime, which is really kind of cool.
Correct. Yeah. So Pippen was like 87. He didn't come into his prime till like 92 to 90, 98.
Yeah, those are like his big years.
Yeah, those are his big years. Grant Hill was right out the gate when he was drafted in 94.
Was it 95?
94, because he was co-rookie of the year 95 with Jason Kidd.
Jason Kidd, yeah. Wow. I forgot that they were
Jeez.
rookie of the years.
Co-rookie of the years. But, dude, yeah. So Grant Hill, Penny Hardaway, and I have both of their screen printed champion jerseys in my closet right now too.
Those are old school. I love those.
Oh
That's
man,
funny.
we'll get into those. Maybe we'll get into those a little bit later in the segment. Ace.
When Champion was a cheap brand.
Oh god, yeah, that's exactly.
Get me on that.
I want to get into that. Ace, your two favorite '90s players.
My two favorite '90s players. I guess I want to preface my announcement of my two players by talking about how accessible players are now, right? Through social media, you can look up highlights very easily now. It's easy, and it's very easy for kids these days to follow players versus teams, right? They can't hitch their wagon on a team and go through the disappointment of fandom of being a Knicks fan, for example. They could just follow a player because, you know, players are fun. You know, you're not married to a team and how bad they are. If they're great, they're great. They're exciting. That's who you like. So it was different for us. So back in the day, me and my friends, we would get excited whenever there was like a new VHS cassette that popped up in someone's house.
I had a bunch of those.
Like compilations. So for me,
those tapes were great.
I rented from a library.
Exactly. So for me, because we could only watch West Coast teams like twice a year, and one of those games are almost always like late at night, and I could hardly ever catch a game whenever the Knicks would play late. So
against the Lakers or something.
So the one player stood out to me is Sean Kemp. I think his game was ahead of his time. Like for me, no one was able to run the floor like him and dunk like him on 2 feet. I mean, he had a lot of iconic moments. I mean, everyone knows that cuff dunk versus Alton Lister and him pointing at him repeatedly.
The Lister blister.
You know, and you know, all the way from Seattle. You know, I mean, everyone knew who he was. And yeah, if his game, give him like a 3-point shot, and his game would probably flourish in today's NBA. And the second player is Jamal Mashburn. Hear me out here.
Ooh, Dallas, very nice.
I fell in love with him in Kentucky, but I heard about him because I always read the local papers, and you know he's a New York City product, so I heard about his success in high school, and I think at the time he was probably one of Pitino's first top recruits. And I thought he was nasty in college because he could back you up, post you up, face you up, and he just had such a crafty game, and I really enjoyed watching him. And when he played for the Heat, I was awfully afraid of him because he to me was the X factor, you know, during those Knicks series. And fortunately, you know, he only had one outstanding season towards the tail end of his career in Charlotte, and mostly
Oh, I forgot about
consistent
that.
but okay seasons. But
Yeah.
he definitely had a lasting impression on me. So
Let-
Monster
he was
Mash
good.
and the
Good
Rain Man.
player.
A lot of people also don't talk about that 93 draft, and this is coming from a guy that has had all the drafts on tape since 1990, since 1992.
Same, yeah.
But so that 93 draft had Chris Webber,
Wow.
Sean Bradley, who had
Ginobili.
a decent
He had a good career.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
For a tall man like that, yeah.
Penny Hardaway, Jamal Mashburn was 4th. Wow. J.R. Ryder was 5th. Calbert
Don't forget
Chaney.
Cappuccini.
Bullets.
Forgot about him.
Jersey City's own Bobby Hurley.
Oh, Bobby Hurley.
Mr. Duke himself.
Yep.
Vin Baker. Rodney
Baker.
Rogers.
He had a good career.
And you had
Rodney Rogers.
You had back-to-back Pistons picks, which Lindsey Hunter and Allen Houston.
Future backcourt.
Wow.
George Lynch, who became like a Sixers staple for a little bit.
I remember
Yeah.
George Lynch.
Seton Hall's own Terry DeHare, who was kind of a big
Nice.
name for us growing
I
up.
remember that.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Let's see if there's anybody else here. But I remember
Any like
also
sleeper picks? Any sleeper picks later on in the first round?
Sam Cassell, who, yeah, I know you guys are gonna.
Only because he got daggers into Knicks, man. Him and Robert Ory.
God.
Oh
Yeah.
my goodness.
He's got rockets in his blood.
Some notables: Corey Blunt, who became kind of like
Serviceable.
serviceable on the Bulls. Lucius Harris.
Oh, okay.
Um,
Good. Yeah.
Want to spell like me? George Marasan was in this draft.
Oh, my
Wow,
goodness.
7-7.
Here's a sleeper.
Wow.
Nick Van Exel went 37th.
Wow.
Nick
okay.
the Quick.
I remember him.
He was
Lakers.
another exciting.
I had his rookie
player.
card.
Nice.
The man who would be known as the guy Michael Jordan hit his last shot as the Bulls over, Brian Russell, was in this draft at 45.
You got
Oddly enough.
pushed.
Shut up.
Mhm.
But yeah, that's pretty much it for the notables on there. Bo Outlaw went super late. Oh no, actually, Bo Outlaw was undrafted, and so was Aaron Williams, who was on the Nets for a little bit during that.
What's in the
championship
76ers?
Okay.
Aaron Williams?
Huh. I don't remember Aaron Williams and the Sixers.
run. I don't think I remember him on the Nets. But,
I like those Nets. I have more appreciation for the Nets jerseys when they like first kind of revamped their look now than I used to back then.
the old school ones or the new ones.
The old school ones that like when they first got rid of like the the Kenny Anderson Nets jerseys to the the Jason Kidd years.
That's a name
Yeah.
from the '90s that I don't know if any of us was gonna pick. But Jay, go ahead.
Georgia Tech.
Yeah.
Kenny Anderson.
Yeah.
Jay, go ahead. Two
Before I mentioned my two, Maersk, it's funny. Alicia met Grant Hill when she was like a little kid. I think
Oh yeah.
somebody in her family knows or knew his agent. So it's always an inside joke whenever he's either calling a game or I'm or on TV. I'm like, oh, there's your buddy, there's your man. Nah, she knows really nothing about him. But it's funny enough because I heard when we first got into this, I heard Will drop a joke about one of my dude who I'm going to pick, who is actually the same guy who Ace picked. Before I learned to dribble, I was still a tall, awkward kind of dude, and I didn't really fit in. And as far as guards go, so I was like a small forward player. So I always looked towards the bigger guys.
Mhm.
And Sean Kemp, just his explosiveness was just unbelievable. Getting drafted right out of high school was pretty impressive.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that one.
Watching him
Yeah.
and Gary Payton play together. And there was this one dunk that he did that I would mimic every single night, whether it was with laundry or, in the schoolyard when I was a little kid. Obviously, I wasn't dunking, but I would do it in layup form. It was like he kind of flung it
Flick it behind the back.
Yes.
over his shoulder.
Yes.
And
Yes.
when he does his free throws, he did something like over his head. So, of course, I used to
Yeah.
throw my free throws like that, like a dummy. Also, I could never find a jersey because,
Seattle.
like Ace was saying, yeah, it's tough when you're over here on the side and West Coast teams aren't really as available. So I ended up finding a blank Sonics jersey that was like 8 sizes oversized, and got all two number 4s, a big one and a little one, number 0s, and KEMP, and ended up ironing it all on.
Oh wow.
Just so I would
Wow.
have it for my first dance I ever went to, which was like in the 6th grade or 7th grade, because I'm a bit older, I think, than you guys. So that was one. Sean Kemp was awesome. And the other one was David Robinson. David Robinson was just
Yeah.
I would just see what he would do, and I would just like just sit there and smile. And one of my first starter jackets was a Spurs jacket that I would
Wow.
call it dead in today. But yeah, so David Robinson and Sean Kemp, I'd have to say.
That's solid choices.
Dave Robinson is the most yoked up basketball player from the
Yeah.
90s, from the 90s at least. Him and Anthony Mason.
It's funny when you said no Jordan, because for me, especially in his prime, since I didn't appreciate him, I knew he was always great. I didn't like him. Like, he was like the villain.
He's the Kobe of our day.
Yeah. So I was like, oh, yeah, that's no problem. I didn't really like Jordan then, and in ways, I was a legend in my own mind, as far as how good I was. And I'm still embarrassed about one thing, Ace. I'll say it now to you, because I did have one outing with Maersk and Will, and I played terribly. So it was a poor representation of what I was, at least in my head. But basketball runs in my family. My mother is a pretty well respected basketball referee for
That's awesome.
For girls basketball here in New York.
It's awesome.
So yeah.
That's amazing.
Jay, you'll never be as bad as Will, and we have it on tape. So
Very true.
That's not true.
Very true.
the highlights are on YouTube, and he's gotten destroyed in the comments for.
Oh,
You're welcome, internet.
yeah, exactly. You should
You're
think of it
welcome.
more that way, Will.
All right. So this was a great topic. So back to the champion jerseys. So I had a Sonics champion jersey. It was rare to find, but it wasn't the actual, because the Sonics had a really unique look with the stripe
they
going
did.
over here, much like the Hawks did.
And the
So-
colorway is whoa.
First of all, and I'll establish this again, the Sonics were my second favorite team, other than the Knicks. I was always a dark horse Bulls fan just because of Jordan, but it's always been the Knicks and the Sonics.
Cool.
And I had the Sean Kemp jersey, but it was green. It just had Sonics on it, 40, and Kemp in the back without the stripe. So it felt super bootleg. But the champion, funny enough, is now this trendy upscale brand, and I feel like I'm getting ripped off now every time I go to eBay to look for a new, because I've been collecting the jerseys now, and this is the one thing COVID has done to me is get my eBay points up, because I've been going on eBay a lot just to kind of look at what's out there just for nostalgic reasons, and I've been picking up a bunch of vintage jerseys at decent prices, but there's some of them out there back in the day, the screen printed jerseys, because we were kids, were the ones that we would get.
Yeah.
And they were only back then they were expensive for us because they were 30, 40, maybe 20, 30 bucks.
Yeah.
And it was still, my parents back then was like, I can iron that on for you.
Yeah.
So why would I get you this? But now they're running it's 60, some of them are 100 depending on the rarity, and I'm just like, an Ed O'Bannon jersey is for Nets jersey, which is kind of a rare Nets jersey, I'll give you that, but I'm not paying $100 for an Ed O'Bannon jersey.
Come on.
A stupid C
No,
logo.
no offense, Mr. O'Bannon.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy they're back. I'm just I'm not overpaying. Champion's not supreme to me, and
This is a Walmart brand. Champion was the Walmart brand of our day. When you went to Caldors,
Bradley's,
you got Champion.
You're speaking to my heart, Will. You're speaking to my heart with Caldor.
You were
Love
still
Caldors.
you were still cool though if you had back in the 90s, if you had Champion, if you had Starter.
Yes, starter,
Yes.
like those pullover jackets.
Yes.
At least
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Which one did you guys have? I had a Knicks. I had two Knicks ones. I had a blue one. I had a black one, and my dad had a Nets one,
Knicks blue.
which looking back at it now looks pretty dope.
They all look dope now. So that Charlotte one is getting it's gotten so hyped. So hyped.
The
I
Shark,
had randomly a San Jose Sharks one. I didn't even.
It's the colors, man.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was
exactly.
those-
That's what it was for me. It was. I didn't care about the team. It's just
I noticed that too. In school, the kids had. I was like, "Are you Sharks fans?" Like, no, but
Yeah.
you like the
It's a jacket.
colors on there. Yeah, the colors.
It's such a weird thing that's this you have your New York based stuff, right?
Yeah.
But then they always have the San Jose Sharks as the other option.
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
New York. Like, why? Why San Jose Sharks?
Yeah. Those colors, man, especially when they first came out.
The Hornets one. It's funny that you mentioned the Spurs one because the Spurs primarily have been a black and white team color scheme wise, but in the '90s their court was blue. And,
yeah.
And their logo
Yeah.
is Texas colors.
The jacket I had was like it wasn't necessarily it wasn't like tie dye, but I remember there being some even like orange in it, and I just looked like a gray marshmallow that hadn't been really toasted enough, with a little bit of orange in it. And I was like, all right, well, I'm repping the Spurs at least.
I miss those hats though. I used to have this is the only Bulls apparel I ever had in my entire life because I was never a Bulls fan. When I was a Knicks fan, so it's hard to be a Bulls and Rockets fan. My mom bought me this hat from Caldors. I think it was Champion. It was just like a plain stitched on Bulls logo. But if I had it now, I promise I'd get at least $75 for it.
Oh yeah.
You
know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's like I wish I could have hung on to a lot of our old sports paraphernalia because who knows how much that Knicks jacket would have been now.
Our old school clothes could pay for a vacation now.
I'm in the process of moving, like I shared with you guys, and I just came across all my my basketball jerseys that I saved throughout the years, and I was thinking like, this is probably my collection from age, let's say 25 and up, and I'm 41 now. Like, what on earth did I do with those other ones that I had, growing up? Like, are they still at my mom's, which is doubtful. But yeah, I kind of wish I had held on to them.
I was gonna say, time to hit up your mom, man. See what you got.
Well, yeah, it's funny. Like the one thing about my old room where she still lives in that house is there's like this one closet that she's never really touched. So I'm sure there's some really like cool stuff in there. One thing I can think of randomly has nothing to do with anything we've spoken about was, do you guys remember at the back of the G.I. Joe packages, they'd have the little squares of the guys? I used to cut them out.
You cut them out?
I used to cut them out. Yep.
I used to do that too.
And I had them in a Band-Aid thing, and I think that Band-Aid thing is in there. So, Will, you've inspired me, man. I'm gonna have to look.
I hit up Mama Dukes.
Jay, knowing you too, those jerseys will still fit, you jerk.